My sister told me that my wealthy doctor fiancé was tricked into having a baby years ago. Now she is asking me to help save his career after he made a big mistake in a surgery. She is even offering to do a favor for me in return. This is about my sister Carol. I'm using her real name because honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. There's no better way to say this. Carol seduced my fiancé because she thought he was too handsome and rich for someone like me. She believed he deserved someone beautiful, so she went after him herself. And that idiot actually married her. Good for them though, because I got rid of a cheater and found someone who truly deserves me. Let me explain. This story goes back 15 years when I was in my mid-20s. Now I'm 41. Carol is 6 years younger than me and has a completely different personality. She's the type who always gets the most attention at family and social gatherings and made sure of it even when we were kids. She loved dressing up and hanging out with friends. No doubt she's beautiful, what you'd call drop-dead gorgeous, and she knows it. She never misses a chance to show off her looks and looks down on people who don't meet her beauty standards, like me. She always criticized my fashion choices and teased me for not being very social. As a child, I was more into academics, spending time with my books and comics instead of playing with Barbie dolls. I didn't even have one. Carol and I never really had a close sisterly bond. She saw herself as a fashion expert, while I was just a plain girl. That's what she called me, plain. Well, in some ways, she was right. I prefer a simple life without too much fuss or drama for attention. I'm calm and collected, enjoying my own space. I left home early for high school and honestly, it was a relief. Who wants to be around someone so entitled? Life was much better with my busy schedule in medical school. I'd visit home during breaks, but I kept those visits short. My interactions with Carol were limited, which was fine by me. She dropped out of high school to chase a career in fashion, then dropped out of fashion school for modeling. When I did keep in touch, she mentioned 2 photo shoot gigs for a local brand in 5 years. It's not exactly what most people would call a successful modeling career, which she often boasts about. But wait, there's more to the story. After I left home, the tension between Carol and me eased. We'd meet a couple of times a year for a few days, and since we didn't spend much time together, things were okay between us. In my first year of college, I met Smith. He was older, pursuing his master's degree while I was working on my bachelor's. He had a few years of experience as a duty doctor and was specializing as a heart specialist, a prestigious field. Plus, he was good-looking. Smith used to teach freshmen about the circulatory system to earn extra money and keep his knowledge sharp. He was popular, especially among the girls, because who wouldn't want to learn from a tall, handsome guy with blue eyes? I also took his classes, and we eventually started dating. After 4 years together, he proposed to me during my final year of college. I had no reason to say no, he was already working at a hospital by then. During the holidays, I visited home and showed Mom the ring Smith had given me. She was thrilled because I rarely got serious about anyone. Smith was actually the first guy I dated and had a relationship with. Mom was curious about Smith because she sensed that we might get married. Carol always used to say that I wouldn't find a good man to marry, by which she meant someone rich and handsome. Whenever she found out I was dating someone, she'd predict that the relationship wouldn't last long. So when Carol heard about Smith, she suddenly became interested and wanted to know more about him. This was unusual because she typically didn't show much interest in my life, which she found boring. When I asked why she was so curious, Carol said, "He's going to be part of the family, so I should get to know him." Mom suggested inviting Smith for dinner on New Year's Eve. Later, I found out that Carol had asked Mom to invite him. Since we didn't have any plans for New Year's, Smith agreed to come. When we arrived home, Carol greeted us, which was surprising because she's usually out partying. She's never home on weekends, and especially not on New Year's. She usually parties with her friends for a week. So her being home was unexpected. Should I have been concerned? Probably, but honestly, I don't care about other people's lives. I went home with Smith, and my sister was immediately taken with him. Her first comment was, "I thought you were rich, but you're handsome too." Her flirtatious behavior was pretty obvious. It was right in my face, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I was confident in my relationship. Throughout the evening, she made advances at him by complimenting him, touching his arms and thighs unnecessarily, and trying to engage him in conversation. She even sat next to him at the dinner table. I gave her a look, and she playfully pouted and said, "You get to be with him every day. Today I can be his arm candy." Everyone laughed, and we took it as harmless fun. During the conversation, she found out that Smith liked to take walks after dinner. As soon as he finished eating, she offered to show him around the neighborhood. Smith looked at me while I sat there, not sure what to say. He awkwardly said yes, and they went for a walk that night. On the drive back, Smith asked me if I noticed how Carol was flirting with him. I laughed it off, saying she just likes attention. I didn't think Smith would be swayed by superficial charm, but unfortunately he was. He was just as captivated by Carol's charm, and he ended up cheating on me at the first opportunity he got. A few months later, during my final year exams, I reduced our time together to focus on studying. I noticed Smith was also communicating less. When I asked him about it, he said he wanted me to concentrate on my exams. I was too busy to suspect anything was wrong. On the last day of my exams, I asked him to pick me up from college, but he said he was busy. That night, I called to check on him, but he said he was too tired to talk and ready to sleep. I decided to surprise him at his place, but it was locked. When I called him again, he didn't answer. I waited for his call the next day, but he didn't call back. I called again and asked why he lied about being home. He said he forgot to mention he was staying in a colleague's place. I didn't see it as a red flag at the time. It was all new to me. This went on for a week until I finally asked him if he wanted to break up. After a moment of hesitation, he quietly said yes and that he no longer loved me. That was the end of our relationship. I didn't ask for details. Heartbreak is always painful, especially without a clear reason. It left me feeling insecure, full of doubt, and with so many unanswered questions that neither of us addressed. It took me months and many bottles of whiskey, but eventually, I moved on. I'm grateful he broke up with me after my finals, otherwise I would have struggled to finish medical school. 7 months later, Carol invited me to her engagement. I congratulated her and asked about her fiancé, but she didn't give his name and urged me to come to the party to meet him in person. Despite feeling a bit sad about my past engagement, I tried to focus on moving forward and went to the engagement. When I arrived, I saw a sign that said Carol and Smith. It shocked me, but I tried to stay calm, thinking Smith is a common name. However, when I saw Smith with Carol, his arms around her, I felt frozen. I didn't know how to react and ended up standing there with tears in my eyes. My mom noticed and pulled me aside, telling me not to cause a scene and let everyone enjoy the celebration. She said nobody knew about our history and she wanted to keep it that way. I burst into tears and shouted, "You all knew everything and still let this happen. Carol is awful. You're all horrible. You're all in on this together." Carol approached with a wicked smile, just like she did 15 years ago, and every word she said then came flooding back. It was the most humiliating moment of my life. She taunted, "You thought you could have this man," pointing at Smith, "handsome, tall, rich, and you're just plain. No chance. You don't deserve him. You deserve someone plain like you. Look at how good we live together and everyone adores us. Such a cute couple. People would have laughed to see you with him." I wanted to slap her, but my mom stopped me and told me to leave. She thought I was there to ruin the engagement. She yelled, "Why did you come? Have some self-respect." I said I didn't know Carol was with Smith. If I had known, I wouldn't have shown up. Carol lied to Mom, saying she didn't invite me. Mom had asked her not to because she knew it would hurt me, but Carol invited me anyway to embarrass me. I left crying uncontrollably. It felt like my breakup pain had come back tenfold. It was a terribly difficult and traumatic time, the lowest point in my life. I finished college with good grades and got a job at a good hospital. My work kept me really busy, so I didn't have much time to think about other things. I made sure to stay occupied on my days off. Eventually, I moved on from the past. Years later, I met my husband at work. He's an important person at the hospital where I work. We dated for 4 years before getting married. Now we have 2 kids. Recently, I got a call from someone I didn't know. It turned out to be my sister Carol, although it took me a moment to realize it was her because I have patients with the same name. I asked her why she called. She was acting unusually nice, asking about my life. I knew there had to be a reason behind her sudden interest. I said, "Stop pretending and tell me what you want." She hesitated for a moment and then said, "I need your help. My husband Smith is in trouble at the hospital. A patient had an allergy after surgery and Smith might lose his job." I was confused and asked, "How can I help?" She explained that since my husband is on the board of the hospital chain where Smith works, he could help save Smith from serious consequences. I completely ignored what Carol said and told her not to contact me again. I didn't realize that Smith worked at a hospital in the same chain as mine, but a different location. I checked his status in the hospital system and saw that he was suspended. I thought about discussing this with my husband, but I didn't want to reopen old wounds, so I left it alone. Then a couple of days ago, my mom unexpectedly showed up at my door. It was a shock since I had cut ties with them after Carol's engagement. She hugged me, acting all emotional about seeing me after so long. But I knew she was really there to ask for help for Smith. My husband was there too, and he heard my mom's plea. He explained that Smith was being investigated for medical mistakes, and that he couldn't do anything to help, even if he wanted to. He believes in fairness and won't misuse his position for personal reasons. My mom left quietly after our conversation. Yesterday, my husband told me that Smith's investigation had finished, and he was going to lose his job. However, my husband can use his influence to keep Smith's medical license if we pay a big fine. He can also ask the other board members to be more forgiving and not escalate the case to the state healthcare department. Now I'm stuck wondering what to do. Should I forgive Smith and help him, or should I let him face the consequences of his actions? As a doctor myself, I understand how hard it is to earn a medical degree, and losing your license is a severe punishment. Update: I shouldn't have asked for advice here because what happened afterward showed that Carol and my mom don't deserve any help. They are acting selfishly. Carol and Mom have been saying mean things about me on social media. I don't use Facebook much, but this week I saw that Carol tagged me in several posts where she called me names for blaming her husband. She wrote a long post saying I was jealous because Smith chose her over me and I'm seeking revenge. My mom joined in, saying I cut them off because I couldn't accept Smith marrying Carol. Even our relatives are supporting them and saying I went too far by affecting Smith's job. Smith himself said I'm delusional and that he never loved me, always loved Carol. It's just unbelievable. I quickly removed myself from their posts and blocked them. I told my husband not to go easy on Smith and to make sure he faces consequences for everything he did wrong. My husband was surprised to see me so angry. Smith was fired from the hospital, and his case was sent to the state healthcare department to cancel his license. The government will investigate, and if Smith is guilty, he could lose his license and even go to jail. It's like adding a cherry on top. I'll keep you updated on what happens next. For now, I'm enjoying the drama with a bowl of popcorn. Delicious. Edit: just to clarify, Carol and my mom were not added to my social media. My account is open, so anyone can tag me in their posts. I hadn't blocked them earlier because I wasn't using social media 15 years ago. Now they're blocked from both social media and my life. It's shocking how low someone can go, but now I know. Smith came to my workplace. He worked for the same hospital chain as me but at a different location. He pretended to be a patient and entered my office. He knew I wouldn't meet him if he came as himself. I immediately asked him to leave, but he argued that he had paid for a consultation, so I should treat him. I agreed and listened to his health issues while secretly recording our conversation on my phone. This was to protect myself in case he tried to trap me again, and it turned out to be a good decision. He was pretending to have the flu, and I gave him medication based on his symptoms. However, he lingered and started asking inappropriate questions and flirting. I told him to stop and leave. He claimed, "I wanted to apologize long ago. I didn't mean to hurt you, but your sister tricked me into sleeping with her. Then she threatened to accuse me of molestation if I didn't marry her." I cut him off because what he said was utter nonsense. I could have called security on him, but watching him squirm was too satisfying. Revenge feels good, you know. I listened with a smirk as he continued, "I know you still love me. That's why you're hurt and seeking revenge. I still care about you. I regret marrying Carol. If you can get your husband to help me avoid jail time, I'll leave Carol and be with you secretly." Can you believe the nerve of this guy? I burst out laughing, called security, and kicked him out. He didn't realize I had recorded everything. Seeing his disappointed face was priceless. He thought he had convinced me. Hilarious. I messaged Carol and told her about her husband's sneaky visit to my clinic. I said, "Your husband came to my clinic pretending to be a patient." Her response shocked me. She said, "I know. He tells me everything. We also know you still have feelings for him. I can let you be with him for a night if you can help him avoid losing his license and going to jail." I realized there was no point in talking to her further. They were in cahoots in this shady game. I informed my husband, and he was appalled. He suggested suing them for offering bribes, but I didn't want to dig up my painful past. I decided to take things step by step and get my revenge. I added Carol Smith, my mom, and other relatives on Facebook. Carol and Smith accepted my friend request quickly, perhaps thinking I was open to their ideas. Then I wrote a detailed post exposing how Carol, Smith, and my mom tried to manipulate me into helping Smith avoid jail time. I attached screenshots of my conversation with Carol and turned the voice recordings into a video with their pictures. I uploaded it all. The post blew up with comments. I blocked Carol, Smith, and my mom to avoid their retaliation. My extended family and relatives were shocked by Carol's offer to let Smith be with me to escape punishment. Carol and my mom tried to reach me, but I blocked their calls and voicemails. I spent the whole weekend reading the comments on my post. People were trolling Carol and Smith like crazy. It was a satisfying weekend. Now, on to the next chapter. Story 2. The bus driver's secret ***. I found out about my wife's year-long affair when our kid's bus driver accidentally spilled the beans. I'll never forget the desperate voicemail she left him after I kicked her out. At the time, we had been married for 10 years and had 2 young sons. My wife was very close to her aging mother, who lived in a retirement home, and she made sure to include her in our family activities. We visited her mom once a week, bringing our sons toys to show her. Soon my wife suggested the boys make gifts for their teachers and the bus driver with Grandma's help. She also started taking her mom out for sightseeing and one-on-one time. The routine was that she'd get the kids off the bus and then get ready to go out. Over time, she began seeing her mom twice a week alone and every other Sunday with all of us. This seemed like a lot, yet her mom always said she missed us. I found it odd since my wife was supposedly spending so much time with her, but I dismissed it. One day, my wife had just gotten the kids off the bus and came back inside, cheerful as ever. She skipped upstairs to get ready for another outing with her mom. My son asked to watch a show, so I grabbed my wife's phone off the charger and noticed several missed calls from my son's bus driver. The kids were home safe, so I couldn't figure out why he would be calling so much. When I tried to call him back, I found that my wife had changed the lock on her phone. My instincts kicked in, and I downloaded an app on my phone to disguise my number as my wife's. I set the call to record before dialing his number. As soon as he answered, he said, "Hi love, are you ready for the special date I promised you?" I hung up immediately. I went upstairs to find my wife getting ready, looking particularly stunning. It was clear she was preparing for a special occasion. When she saw me, she started downplaying her appearance, explaining that her mom always encouraged her to take pride in how she looked, no matter what. I played the recording of the bus driver's voice. Her perfume bottle slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She immediately became desperate, begging me to just hold on a minute and listen to her, but I grabbed the car keys and took the boys with me. I insisted that she have the bus driver come get her and never bring her back. She was too panicked to cry, just hyperventilating and saying she would have nowhere to stay because her home was with me and the boys. I refused to give in. I called the bus driver again, this time on speakerphone. He answered in a weary tone. I told him I knew what was going on and that he needed to come pick up my wife because she belonged to him now. He quickly told me to slow down, that he was married and didn't want to get involved in any drama. My wife's face fell when she realized just how bad her situation was. I just shrugged and hung up while she started redialing his number in vain. Just before I left, I heard her leave a voicemail telling him he needed to come pick her up and get her a place to stay because this was all his fault. I suppose she continued calling him late into the night until she found his wife on social media and publicly begged her to tell him to call her because she needed to speak urgently. This obviously raised suspicions, leading his wife to discover the truth. My wife had been dating and sleeping with our children's bus driver for an entire year. I had no idea it had been going on for so long. I felt like an idiot for not looking into my wife's whereabouts sooner, but I truly believed she was spending time with her mom. She was, but only very rarely. His wife exposed my wife's affair to the school and all over town. He was so ashamed and willing to do whatever it took to gain his wife's forgiveness. He ghosted my wife and even stopped using social media. He tried desperately to prove his loyalty to his wife, hoping things could go back to normal. They never did for any of us. My wife was mortally embarrassed that her lover had abandoned her at the first sign of trouble, and that in her attempts to get his help, she broke his family apart and made things worse for herself. I also ghosted her until a visitation schedule was made, and I was awarded primary custody of our kids. Her desperate affair cost her reputation, self-confidence, and family. She isn't the same person she was, and I doubt she ever will be. I'm thankful I'm not the one who has to figure out how to live without my kids because of a stupid mistake that shouldn't have happened. The bus driver even apologized to me, explaining that when he started seeing my wife, he was in a bad place in his own marriage. He said he only needed someone for emotional support, but emotional support turned into physical, and before he knew it, they were living a double life and got caught red-handed.